All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Random Radio. Welcome to another episode of Just Ask, the podcast where you ask the questions, we give the answers. I'm Nicholas John Random, your host, and we are once again live at the Stimulus Cafe Coffee House in beautiful Durango, Colorado. Our question today is all about food. Now, as such, I imagine this is going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast than normal. And that's for a number of reasons. Number one, people have extremely, unlike most of the things that we talk about, unlike aliens or who built the pyramids or time travel or this or that, where everybody has an opinion, of course. People have extremely strong opinions about food. The funny part about that is, despite what people who have those strong opinions will say, we know just about the same amount about food and intake as we do about anything else. It's everything you know about anything you know is based off of science that's been collected for a few hundred years, realistically. Most things in life in general. And food is no different. Sometimes much, much less. Sometimes a new food comes out, acai berry or pomegranate or this and that, and people are doing all these studies and saying, oh, it's so much healthier for you to do this, or it's this and that and that. Everything is relative to the studies that's being tested and the people and your environment and where those people grew up and their genetics and this and that and this. Food is a complicated one, and people have really, 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 really strong opinions. Now, there are some basic things about food that people know and should know. Sugar, excess in sugar is bad, things like that. But it's pretty hardcore out there when it comes to people's opinions on food. So I'm going to keep my talking today really summed up and vague. I'm going to try to be pretty vague about the stuff because I just don't feel like the wave of comments and arguments that are going to come my way. Now, I don't really care. I don't even look at that stuff unless it's an interesting question that I want to answer, like this one today. So I have a sunny disposition. Feel free to throw whatever negative comments you want at me. It'll be fine. The other reason this is probably going to be a little bit shorter is because we're talking about food and because we're talking about the subject I'm about to bring up. I have to name, again, unlike the weird, strange stuff that we normally talk about, I have to actually use some company names. And I don't feel like being sued for slander. And I don't want to, this podcast operates very, very much on the Fair Use Act, which is why you're able to see all these images of things that I provide. If you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening, then you're not seeing any of those images. But I use the fair use laws that are in place in America, which allows me to talk about companies and show pictures of companies and show pictures of movies and art and things like that without replication, because this is an education. It's supposed to be an educational podcast. I'm supposed to be helping you learn different things about different subjects. And that allows me fair use of those images and things like that. But I don't want to push the envelope. So when I'm talking about these companies today, again, just this thing that I have to say at the beginning of every podcast now is just remember, this is one guy's opinion, and it is an opinion. It is my opinion based off the information I've been able to find and collect, and I'm more than happy to update my information if new, valuable knowledge comes my way. So today's question comes from Marie. So she sent us a question. She said she's tired of people hassling her all the time about how much junk food she eats. So her question is, how bad is fast food for us really? Now, again, I'm hoping that most people realize, and I'm going to answer this question for Marie because she asked us, and I want to answer it. But I'm hoping that most people out there realize that, yes, fast food is bad for you. And eating a lot of it is probably definitely bad for you. It's pretty common knowledge that fast foods are high in a lot of things, trans fats, corn syrups, and extremely high sodium levels and things like that. And those things on the body in long term can have terrible, terrible effects. Your blood pressure increases dramatically. inflammation increases, spikes in blood sugar. You can have effects in your nutrient intake. It's Eating fast food all the time is not going to be good for you. The three of those things that I just mentioned: increases in blood pressure due to high sodium levels, spikes in blood sugar. That large insulin surge you get causes drops in blood sugar, and inflammation. There's a number of studies that show fast food with the saturated fats, things like that, can trigger inflammation in your body. But that's pretty common knowledge. I think most people realize that eating fast food all the time is probably bad. The problem we have in America is it's so readily available to us. And if you work like myself, I work really, really long days. Sometimes at the end of the night, it's like, well, I just worked all day. Do I really want to go home and spend a half an hour making a meal and then have to do all those dishes and all that kind of stuff? No, so let's just go grab a burger and fries. Doesn't that sound good? And the problem is they up it with the sodium, so it's salty and delicious, and you want that, you crave it. And same thing with the sugar. They put that high fructose corn syrup in there because it's sweet and it makes you want to go get that Frosty or that that ice cream shake or whatever you got. It's tempting and it's delicious, but eating it all the time is definitely going to be bad for you. Eating it every now and then, I don't think is necessarily terrible. People will agree to disagree on this one, I think. I think there's some, like I said, food is a tricky topic to talk about because people are so in their own zones, and there's people who, it's all or nothing for them. It's you can never have these things or never have that or whatever. And I want people to approach fast food kind of like I just told a friend of mine. We were talking about sugar, and I want you to approach fast food very much like sugar. I had a friend ask me, he said, "Hey, I want to stop eating so much sugar. Sugar, I think it's causing me problems," which it definitely was. There's so much sugar in everything. I want to stop eating so much sugar. I'd like to just cut it out entirely. How do I do that? And that just seems cruel to my taste. I like food, and I don't want to just eat terrible food all the time because I can't have sugar because I cut it all out. And I told him this, and I want you to think of fast food in the very same way. It's not necessarily about, people have a tendency to want to go all or nothing, cold turkey. And we're not talking about heroin here. Okay, there's some pretty hardcore stuff out there that you should absolutely go cold turkey on. Just give that stuff up. If you're doing heroin, please put the needle down and stop doing heroin. That stuff's bad. Now, when it comes to things like sugar or fast food, the reality is in America, they put sugar in everything. It is in everything. High fructose corn syrup or all the artificial sweeteners or sucrose is in everything. Stevia, it's in everything you can find. And fast food is readily available. Like we just discussed, it's so much easier to just go grab some fast food. Even fast foods you wouldn't think of as necessarily bad fast foods like Subway or something like that. They're just as bad, just so you know, and we'll go into that in a bit. But it's everywhere and it's easy. How do we avoid it? Well, first thing is get rid of that all or nothing thing in your head. That all or nothing mentality, that's not necessary. What I tell people is this: just focus on what you're eating. Just think about what you're eating and actively look at it. Because I can tell you this, just by taking a look at the things you are eating, odds are you will drastically reduce your sugar intake and reduce your fast food intake. Like the other day I went to the store and I used to drink those vitamin waters all the time. I liked them, XXX, good flavor, it was good. And I started drinking them years ago because I thought they were healthy. And I had quit soda a couple of times and started back up. And when I was younger and I was a kid, I drank so much soda. I would drink several 2 liters of soda a day. And I got big, and I was a big guy for a little while. And I later realized, because I quit soda, I did the all or nothing thing. And I accidentally lost 25 pounds. I wasn't exercising, I wasn't dieting or anything like that. The only thing I did was quit soda. And I realized that's the effect soda was having on me. That by changing absolutely nothing in my diet whatsoever, just quitting soda, I lost 25 pounds in a very short period of time. So I have quit soda on and off. Not too long ago, I was at the store, and I try not to, like I said, I'm at that point in my life where I try not to drink so much soda. Every once in a while I'll have one. But I was looking in the store, and I was drinking these vitamin waters for a really long time, and I was just looking at this little cooler. It wasn't a full-size cooler, so there was vitamin waters of various flavors. There was regular water, bottled water. There was Powerade and a couple other drinks, Cokes and stuff like that. So I picked up the Coke, and I looked at the back and looked at the amount of sugar that was in there, and I was like, oh, okay, well, I knew there was that much sugar in there. So I picked up the vitamin water, and I looked at that. Well, it had about half the amount that Coke had in it, but surprisingly still more than I thought it did. And I picked up the Powerade, because I was like, well, Powerade, I've tasted it. It's way sugary tasting than vitamin water. Surely it's got less sugar. In fact, Powerade had about a third of the sugar that a Coke has, so less than a vitamin water, which surprised me. I had been drinking these vitamin waters for a very long time, and I didn't realize that a Powerade actually had less sugar. And so I bought the Powerade, and I went home and I drank the Powerade. Just by doing little things like that, like just by that move that day, rather than grab that Coke, I still grabbed a tasty drink. I grabbed a Powerade. I like Powerade. It tastes good. And it still cut my sugar intake by 2/3 just by doing that. And it's just little stuff like that. Like if I want a snack, sometimes I'll look at the candy and stuff like that, and then I'll look at the chocolate. And a lot of times I will go grab a chocolate for 2 reasons. One, I love chocolate. Who doesn't love chocolate? It's delicious. And I usually gravitate more towards chocolate rather than the sweet stuff. But also because chocolate does have sugar in it, absolutely. But compared to like candy, Skittles, Junior Mints, and all that kind of stuff, compared to that, it has way less sugar. Chocolate. So if you're a person, by the way, who's trying to eat a little less sugar, that's one thing you should definitely know is you can still have sweet stuff. Just pick chocolate over candy, chocolate over Skittles every time, because you'll cut out a lot of sugar. Now, just those little things, those little details will reduce that intake dramatically. And it's the same thing with fast food. Just realizing how, like, paying attention to your body before you eat it, after you eat it, like I said, those blood sugar spikes, and then you get, as they say in the South, you get the itis, getting super tired right after you eat it. That's because your body is a wreck after you eat fast food. So just focusing a little bit on your food intake will dramatically make you healthier. I know that seems like it should be common sense, but it's really not. People have a tendency to just eat. You just eat. We're Americans. We eat 3 meals a day because that's what we were taught, which is crazy. You don't have to do that. That's ridiculous. There is no spectrum. Everybody's bodies are completely different. Eat when you feel like you're hungry. It's like the 8 glasses of water thing a day. When we were kids, we were told to drink 8 glasses of water every day. That is not healthy. Now, again, food people are going to say this, going to say that, or whatever, but I can tell you, as a scientist, that's not healthy. It's not healthy. Now, there are some people who can drink 8 glasses of water, and that's totally healthy for them, but first things first, that everybody needs to understand, every human body is different from every other human body. We all are completely different. We all have completely different metabolisms and the way our bodies absorb water and things like that. Telling people that you need to drink 8 glasses of water a day is making them believe that is healthy for them. And that's ridiculous, because a lot of times you are drastically overhydrating your body, which is not healthy. You can't have too much water. Yes, you can. There are people who've died from drinking too much water, and it doesn't happen very often, but it's definitely a thing. They've slowly realized this over the last several years, and they've been trying to tell people that, not like when we were kids, but they've been trying to fix that little glitch that they had by telling people, no, you don't need to drink 8 glasses of water. What you need to do is drink when you're thirsty, which should be common sense, right? Drink when you're thirsty. Well, the same thing goes with food. I will say this, being a guy who's gained and lost weight and fluctuated quite a lot, there's hunger and there is an appetite, and they are two different things. See, if you're used to eating all the time, you will definitely have an appetite feeling, which is like this feeling that you should probably eat or probably go grab something. But that's not real hunger. That's your appetite. That's like, I kind of want this, or shouldn't we eat that? We're used to doing that. We should go get that. That's kind of like an addiction. Your body at that point is addicted to food. But you can tell, your body it's pretty self-explanatory, your body. You can tell when you're hungry. And you should eat when you're hungry. And that's about it. You don't need to eat 3 meals a day if you don't feel like it. If you do, if you're a big gym guy and you need those carbs, you need those carbs. Everybody's different. There's a million different types of bodies in the world, and everybody's got a different kind of thing. We're getting off subject. Got to keep this shorter, is what I said in the beginning. Fast food. So, besides the very obvious things that we just talked about, high sodium and trans fats and all that kind of stuff, why is fast food so bad for you? Well, I mean, there's a number of reasons. First off, don't ever believe for a second that what you're eating is what they say you're eating. There was a study that came out a few years ago that showed that in the very most popular fast food joints, and I'm not going to name names, I'm going to try and do that as little as possible, but in the most popular fast food joints in America, most of the chicken, like they took chicken from the chicken sandwiches, only contained about 43% chicken DNA. You understand what I'm saying? Your chicken isn't even chicken. So don't think for a second that it's real food, that it's really what it is. Also, there's things like pink slime and stuff like that. Now, I'm sure you've heard that term, pink slime. Pink slime is the term they use for it's the excess parts when they're this is again cover your ears if you're squeamish, but when they take an animal and they are processing that animal, there's the chunks that they want to use that sell and make a lot of money, T-bones and tenderloins and back ribs and back fat and all that kind of stuff that they use on the animals for certain products that they can sell to make money for. Pink slime is everything that's left over. It's all the leftover stuff that they've ground together and processed, and it just comes out looking like really thin, kind of gross paste. Now, the U.S. technically classifies this as hamburger these days. Like, it's technically classified in the same, which is really sad, but it's now technically classified as in the same category as hamburger. And companies take advantage of that. So, first off, every fast food joint still uses it. They will tell you they don't, but they 100% do. And you're saying, why would they use pink slime in my fast food chains? Well, because it's cheap. So let's see, what in 2016, I think it was 2015, 2016, there was a big news report that before you knew it was all across every news station in America about pink slime. Somebody had heard the term pink slime because somebody had found out that they were selling pink slime to cafeterias for schools. And of course the moms got furious and they're like, what is this terrible gross food you're feeding our children, blah, blah, blah. They'd been doing it for years. Like every one of your children, themselves had been eating pink slime. They had been doing it for years and years and years and years and years because it's cheap. So the people who usually ended up with pink slime are hot dog factories, bologna factories, schools, and fast food chains. Well, fast food chains, try and promote themselves to be better. They're all trying to outdo each other. So for a long time, they only used it a little bit. They would use it for the very like the cheapest of their stuff, like the dollar burgers and things like that. Pink slime also can mean chicken, so like chicken nuggets and things like that. So they only used it for the really, really cheap stuff. Like, Burger King. You ever wonder how you can get 20 chicken nuggets for $1.49 at Burger King? That doesn't seem like that makes sense financially, does it? Well, it's because it's used with chicken pink slime. It's extremely, extremely cheap stuff. But anyway, they only used it for a long time at these fast food restaurants for the really, really cheap stuff. But then when that story came out in 2016, I know it sounds weird to think of stocks when it comes to pink slime, but everything is created in a market these days. And meat companies started losing because the schools were all getting grief from all the parents and things like that. Schools were their number one buyer of pink slime for a long, long time, and they still are. It's all still there, guys. So whenever the story came out, the pink slime took a huge, huge dip in the profit margin for these meat companies. As a result, these companies were going to go under. And this is something I want you to pay attention to. You always should pay attention. I mean, I know it's hard. You got lives and stuff like that. But always pay attention when there's a food item that takes a big dive in the market. Always pay attention, because I guarantee it, usually a fast food company will buy it up. So when pink slime took a huge dive in the profit margin after they released that story all over the country about pink slime being bad and like gross, and why are they selling it to our schools or whatever, guess who bought it up? Big companies like Yum Foods, who owns Taco Bell, KFC, and Pizza Hut, and a number of other places. Yum Foods used to be PepsiCo. That's another thing you should pay attention to. Is a lot of fast food chains used to be owned by soda companies. That should tell you right there that no, fast food is not good for you to eat all the time. But we're going to stick on the pink slime thing. So in 2016, they did that story. And in 2017, after purchasing large amounts of hold of pink slime from these companies, Yum Foods particularly, and a number of other companies, they all did the same thing. They all followed suit, came out with reports saying they were no longer going to be using pink slime in any of their foods. Well, that was a lie. You see, they're still using pink slime in their foods. It's just that pink slime was recategorized by the FDA and by all the food processing companies in the world. It was recategorized as basically ground meat, ground beef. It just has a new name. It's still pink slime, still the exact same stuff. They just renamed it, and they still use it. But they were able to say aloud to everybody, nope, we will never use pink slime ever again. Well, that's not true. They still very much use it. So you have things like that. Also, same thing about paying attention to foods. A few years back, they did a big story on apples about high amounts of pesticides from the chemicals they would spray to get rid of bugs and stuff or whatever. By the way, every single vegetable and fruit out there does the exact same thing. They all spray pesticides and chemicals and stuff like that on all the food to make sure there's no bugs, because they want your food to look perfect when they sell it at the market, because if it looks good, you'll buy it. That's how it works. So they do all sorts of crazy stuff, but we're not going to go down that road right now. We're talking about fast food. But the point is, it was a big Apple company. They had a big story about them and all the pesticides and oh my gosh, we shouldn't eat these apples. We shouldn't eat. Well, guess what happened? Of course, the Apple company took a giant stock drop. Like, nobody was buying them anymore. The stocks went way, 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 way down, and they almost went out of business entirely. Guess who hopped in at the last moment? McDonald's. And now, when you go to McDonald's and you order a kid's meal, you don't get fries with that kid's meal. You get apple slices. And McDonald's was able to play it off like they were being healthier. We're making the kids healthier. Well, realistically, they are probably healthier eating apple slices than French fries, even if those apples have pesticides and stuff all over them. But just so you know, it's never, ever about being more healthy. Ever. It's never about what they say it's about. It's about profits and money. And the Apple company was going under, and McDonald's realized they could buy a ridiculous amount of apples for almost nothing and turn around and make a lot more money by just buying those apples, putting them in the Happy Meals, and selling them instead of French fries, giving away their French fries to kids who barely eat the French fries anyway. Just little things like that you have to pay attention to. So they do all sorts of shady, shady stuff when it comes to fast food, everybody. There's also a number of things, like fast food companies in general are terrible. Like, when they do the switches, the Starbucks, we're not even talking about food. We're talking about coffee. Starbucks and McDonald's and everybody got all uppity a few years ago because there was a video about a turtle getting a straw stuck up its nose or whatever, and everybody was like, oh, we got to switch to paper straws. We got to switch to paper straws. We got to recycle. We got to save the environment. I can tell you right now that according to studies taken in 2019, 99.7% of all coffee cups that come from Starbucks or McDonald's do not get recycled. And the same thing with those straws. Those paper straws that they force everybody to use because they think that it makes them look better, they're not recyclable paper straws. They're too thick to recycle. It's just a trick. It's all a PR stunt. Fast food companies they do that kind of thing all the time. Now, when it comes to the actual food itself, like I said, they've done a number of studies to say who has the healthiest this and who has the healthiest that. I can tell you who has the most real food, and you'd be surprised. I mean, sometimes not. So Chick-fil-A, terrible, terrible company in general, but when it comes to their decisions in life and the world, but we're not going to get into that. But they have quality chicken most of the time. KFC, surprisingly, it's a big name chain, but surprisingly they do have quality chicken. Now that's not any of the other stuff that they sell. That's just the chicken. But when it comes down to it, some of the worst offenders, believe it or not, Subway. Subway is one of the worst offenders. And I love Subway, which is really, really sad. But it's not that it's inedible or anything like that. It's just that it's not what they say it is. Their chicken sandwiches, for instance, like if you get a grilled chicken sandwich or something like that, and they pull out that patty of a grilled chicken, it's got the grill marks on it. That's a stamp, right? That's not real grill marks. When was the last time you went to a Subway and you saw a grill? They don't have one. What happens is they take that chicken pink slime and they form it into patties. And then they take a stamp, a burn stamp, and they literally run it through a conveyor belt and stamp every little patty. And then they put it in a bag and they ship it frozen. But Subway is actually a big offender. Like you would think, they advertise as healthy, but most of their stuff is high in sodium. Like I said, they definitely only have a very, very, very little bit of chicken in their actual chicken. It's not real chicken. It's just not good. So, no, fast food is not good for you. Corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup is in so much fast food that's unnecessary. And people ask me, we could talk about corn syrup for days, but people ask me, what's the real deal with corn syrup and why is it so awful? What is the real bad when it comes to corn syrup? Well, This is going to sound strange, but I'm going to break this down for you. First off, the reason we have in America replaced sugar, like regular sugar, with corn syrup, is because of the same thing that it's all about money, guys. It's the same thing that everything has to do with. It's about money. So years ago in the 70s, mostly, big companies realized it was cheaper to manufacture, process, stay fresh, all those things, with corn syrup rather than regular sugar. So they started replacing it. Everything is replaced. And what do I mean by that? I mean, right now I can go to the store and buy a 2 liter of Pepsi, and on the back of it, it'll say high fructose corn syrup, one of the first ingredients. If I do the same thing in Jamaica, it won't say that on the bottle. It'll say cane sugar on that bottle. Because in most countries in the world, they use sugar. America uses high fructose corn syrup in just about everything. And why is it so bad? This is a theory of mine. So this is I'm gonna try and not be controversial when it comes to this, but I'm just gonna say some things. Your genetics definitely have a play when it comes to food and how your body reacts to certain foods. That's why some people are lactose intolerant, and some people, can't eat almonds and things like that. Your genetics has to do with life and has to do with what you can and cannot eat. So there's an old joke. This is going to be a little gross, but there's an old joke that whenever you eat corn, it doesn't digest, and you can see it in your poop after you go to the bathroom. Well, that's not always the case. The truth is, for most people, they don't digest corn. And it's not necessarily the corn, it's the casing of the corn, the outside bit of the corn, that their bodies don't digest. And this is the part that may sound a little strange, but the reason why this is because corn comes from America mostly, the Americas, I should say, as far as, North America, the United States, South America, Mexico, all those areas. That is where corn comes from. It is now spread to the rest of the world, but that's where corn is native to. Because of that, there are some people who 100% digest corn. If you have Native American ancestry, you have no problem digesting corn. So the thing is with Americans, let's be honest, most Americans have European American descent. Most Americans come from Europe or Asia, countries that are not native to North America. That's just a reality. We can have, nation pride and all that kind of stuff or whatever, but the reality is almost all of our ancestors do not come from here, with the exception of Native Americans. Native Americans can digest corn. A lot of Americans cannot because we have European blood. And Europeans didn't have access to corn. We never got used to it. So when we eat corn, it doesn't digest in our system. Now I want you to think about this. If corn doesn't digest in our system, what do you think high fructose corn syrup does? Because I want you to realize that what high fructose corn syrup is essentially broken down little tiny bits of corn. It is molecular corn. The regular corn you eat doesn't digest and it comes through your poop. You've now broken down corn to a molecular level and have little grains of high fructose corn. And that's what they're putting in everything. It's not good. The point is, it's not good. They put it in everything and it's not good. I think it's pretty obvious that fast food's not good for you. And just for a little clarification, if you want to understand, it's just a business. Like I said, Pepsi, the company, used to own Pizza Hut, Nabisco, KFC, A&W Root Beer, the restaurant A&W Root Beer. They used to own Taco Bell, Wing Street, a number of restaurants. And then it kind of did a little transition, and there was a little thing, and now it was a company called Tricon. Now it's a company called Yum Foods. Yum, with an exclamation point. But it's the same company. It's the same guys. Yum Brands still owns KFC, Pizza Hut, Taco Bell, Wing Street, and a number of other companies. So essentially, soda companies were telling you what to eat and that it was good for you. But it's not. But it's just like any other industry in the world. In America, there's about 10. Think about how many fast food companies there are all over the country. And by the way, I don't just mean like McDonald's and Burger King when I say fast food. I mean Olive Garden, Red Lobster, those kind of places. That's fast food too. I know you don't think of it as it, but it is. It's mass production fast food. And when it comes to all the different kinds in America, realistically, there's only about 10 companies that own all of those companies. They're all subsidiaries of the same companies. So how bad is fast food for you, really? It's pretty bad. But just like anything else, just pay attention to what you eat. Just, eat it every once in a while when you're craving some stuff. Don't eat it every night for every single meal. That's not good. But I think that's where we're going to leave it today. I know this was a silly one, and it was mostly just random rambling. But, again, I think this one was a pretty easy one. Most people know you shouldn't eat fast food all the time. But that's just a little bit about some of the fast food stuff that I know and why you shouldn't eat it all the time. That's where we're going to leave it today. So thanks for joining us here at Random Radio for our Just Ask podcast. If you'd like to support Random Radio a little bit, you want to keep the lights on for us, head over to our Patreon account and join us, become a member. You get some exclusives over there, maybe some early episodes or some swag. If you like the videos, like the podcast, click that like button. If you got a question for me, and you know how I love to answer those questions, send me an email at random@cafestimulus.com or send me a comment or a message any way you can, and I'll do my best to answer it if it's a good question. I like those good questions. And once again, we're live here at Stimulus Cafe and Coffee House in beautiful Durango, Colorado. If you ever feel like stopping by for a cup of coffee, come on in. Maybe I'll be here. Until next time, guys, I'm your host, Nicholas John Random. Have a marvelous day.